So my guest right now is Wael Masri, and Wael has two master's degrees, one in industrial engineering and the other in international business studies from top-ranked universities in the States. Over the past 20 years, Wael has utilized his management and technical background at his family-owned US export sales and international procurement business to create strategic and cost-effective solutions for clients worldwide. Intimately familiar with the culture and the business language of the Arabian Peninsula, Wael travels there normally to create, support, and nurture long-term business partnerships for Teknitrade Limited. He also enjoys volunteering as a guest speaker on international topics in the role of a cultural ambassador to students of all ages, as well as coaching disadvantaged job seekers in the local community on their interviewing skills. Wael was born in Beirut, Lebanon, which is actually one of my favorite cities to visit, and then grew up in a cosmopolitan environment in Bahrain, where he attended an international school that had students from 48 different countries. And he's currently living and working in Raleigh, North Carolina, where he first came in 1986 to attend NCSU. Wael, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
So I guess with a background like the one you had, it was almost predestined, right? That you should go into some kind of international business setting.
Yes, yes. It was my natural calling. I was interested in that before I started my international MBA program, which in a sense is why I was attracted to doing an international MBA, because I was always interested in this international business, international cultures, and growing that and connecting with it in that way.
And how did you actually start out with your export business? Did you start out right away after your MBA with your own business, or did you start out working in another company?
No, I started out helping my father on a part-time basis when he established it in 1990, and he established it in a very natural way, which is that we are living here in North Carolina, and in 1990, North Carolina was still the world capital for home furnishings. It is no longer that right now, but at that time it was the world center for that. So he had friends in Bahrain where we had grown up, who were interested in furnishing their homes and their villas. So he just started a conversation with them saying, well, I'm here in the States. I'm sure I can find for you more options at a lower cost than what you can find there. And it just started off as doing a service to a friend. And then that friend then had another friend who wanted the same thing, and another friend. And then after furnishing multiple villas, one of them came back to us and said, well, I also work at an engineering company in Saudi Arabia. Could you help us with the engineering products, with the IT products, with the network telecom products? And we had no experience in that, but we said, why not? And then we started from scratch, and we evolved, going from selling home furniture to friends and people on a personal basis, to then really starting in the following year our B2B business, servicing commercial contractors in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain.
Wow, that sounds like must have been quite a learning curve, especially in the beginning.
Yes, it was, and it was very fascinating, because really it was driven by whatever our customers wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so long as we have customers, I can find for them what they need. So
Yeah.
we were from the start driven by, if we have customers, they are bringing us more customers because of their friends and their family, and their companies. And then we service them and we find out, what do they need? How can we support you? Then we establish connections in the States with the suppliers, and by simply going to them and saying, we have customer needs, can you support us? So when we have a buyer in hand, we are empowered to accomplish a lot.
That sounds like it's a really good place to start from, because if you already have the buyer, it's much easier than trying to push the product to somebody who's maybe not so interested. But
Exactly, yes.
yeah, but are there some things that you did at the beginning that you say, oh, I wish I never did that, and if I could start again, I would do that differently?
Um, there are many things that I wish I could have done differently. It wasn't so much things that I did as much as things that I had not done, or things that I had not done enough at the beginning. So it wasn't that I had done mistakes of things doing, it was mistakes as in opportunities that were overlooked and missed. So one of the things that I wish I had done more of was spending more time understanding everything that my customers need, and then asking them actively for um, referrals, and telling them that to better serve you, I also need to better serve others. Bring me some of your friends and your colleagues. Let me serve all of them at the same time. We were not very proactively seeking that. Uh, we grew in an organic way by having um, people hear about us through word of mouth, and then coming and having them come to us. But we were typically not chasing after new people, and we could have grown a lot faster, a lot sooner had we done that.
And so would you advise someone who's starting out that they should actively, even if they don't have such a, let's say, such an established set of people who are asking them for things, that those customers that they do have, they should automatically say to them, please refer me, or please write me a reference, or please give me reviews, or those kind of feedbacks and referrals, that's
Yes,
something from the beginning?
yes, all of the above, including maybe including the possibility, which depending on the industry, uh, the option of saving them money on shipping costs. If they and their friends want to order things at the same time, you can consolidate and you can have it way. So you could save them on the shipping cost. You could even say, if you bring me your friends, I will waive shipping costs for you because I will put that on something else. There are there are many ways of doing it as a service without directly paying people,
Yeah.
because not everyone wants to do that. But there are many ways of thanking them in a courteous way that that shows gratitude, uh, without them feeling as if they are being paid for that.
Yep.
Because sometimes that makes sense. At other times, you just want to make it seem as a friendly thing.
Yeah. And it's a fine line to tread, I would say, between where is a gift and which is appreciated, and where is something which seems a little bit like too much for the.
Right, and it depends on what kind of relationship you are trying to court with them. So, if you want them to become um, indirectly a salesperson for you, that's one thing. But if they are just your customer and you want to treat them right, then you want to see, well, what else can I do for you? One of the things that we have done to, in a sense, uh, ingratiate ingratiate ourselves with people is we have focused on being very, very personable with them. What I mean by that is, in addition to what they need for their business, if they want something for themselves personally, then we often just get that for them at cost and do it for them as a service. If they want information on colleges for their kids, we just do that for them as a service, because we are here, and all what we're trying to do in that sense is establish ourselves with them as a trusted US expert. And we have expertise in all things about the country here, and then that just grows, and then become top of mind for them.
Yeah, it's also a question of building your relationship with those
Yes,
people.
yes,
And
yes, yes. So when I'm helping someone uh, getting getting his son in a college here and helping them choose and spending a lot of time on that, my intent is primarily, firstly, to help his son and to help him and to make him feel that he is well taken care of. A byproduct of that is that that customer who now sees me as a friend wants to send me more business to me
yes,
because I'm being helpful. But I did not do that and then follow up with
for
an
the business.
email.
Yeah,
Hey, now that I've done this for you, I need to get another order from you. That is, it's not a quid pro quo. It's I'm being helpful for the sake of being helpful. Byproduct of that is they now trust me more and they want to do business with me more. It comes out naturally.
yeah, which is a much more, let's say, it's a much more pleasant way to go about doing things. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. And it goes both ways so that when I'm traveling there to see them, not only are they happy to see me, but they want to show me around and they want to open themselves, open their house to us. So it becomes a much more warm, cordial relationship that can continue to grow in an organic way.
Yeah. And so for people who are really just new to export, where would you suggest that they start? Should they think about specific markets or should they think about specific products? What would you recommend for somebody who's just starting out?
Well, you want to find out what are your strengths. Uh, for us, our strength was our connections with the people in that area because
Mm-hmm.
we had grown up there. Uh, my father had worked in that area for almost 30 years. I have spent 17 years there as well. So it is a natural bridge for me to start
Yes.
working there. I did not start working in South America because I neither understand the language or the culture, whereas in the Middle East, I've got both, and people could uh, could see that for me, could see that from me. So for someone starting, I'd say explore where are your strengths, where are your affinities, and then why do you want to go into international business? Is it because you know that someone out of the country has a need for your product, or that your product is so new that it is not explored yet outside?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a pull marketing or is it a push marketing? But basically, no matter how you do it, you want to be addressing a customer need.
Yeah, I think that that's something that people often forget, especially I I don't want to talk in cliches, but especially tech companies, they often forget that they have to put the customer in the center of whatever they're doing, that they have to really think about what does the customer need, and they get so, let's say, they get so caught up in the wonders of their product and the new features and what else can I do and what else, and it's such a wonderful product that they forget that you can have the most fantastic product, but if nobody needs it or nobody wants it, then you're not going to sell. Whichever market you're in, doesn't matter,
Correct.
US or
Correct.
Africa.
You're absolutely right. And you can't sell products based on their features. You sell them based on the problems that it solves
Yes.
for the customer, on the benefits that brings to the customer. Um, so it goes back to the old saying about teachers, that the students of a teacher do not care what the teacher knows until they know that the teacher cares about them. So once your customer knows that you are interested in them and that you care about them, and about addressing their needs, and as an engineer, it comes out naturally. I want to solve your technical problems, and then I'm speaking to other engineers there. They understand that type of language. So once they see that you're on their side and you want to solve their problems, then it comes out. Then you can have a conversation. But if you're just telling people how wonderful you are and you have not taken time to find out anything about them, uh, I don't know. It's almost like you're going on. It's almost as if a man were to go on a blind date and spend the whole time talking about how handsome he is and how wonderful he is and all that, without even looking at the lady in the eye and saying anything nice about her. I don't see how that works.
No.
And when I'm talking about customers, I don't need to be to be flattering them, but I just need to show them that I want to know them. I want to understand them. I want to understand what their issues are. So I begin by asking them open-ended questions, trying to see what is it that you're trying to accomplish? How can I help you? And sometimes that may mean that I simply refer you to someone else. I don't have the answer every time, but when I do that, now they know that I am a person who wants to help them, even if it does not make me money at every opportunity. Now I am earning trust and I'm seen as someone who they can count on, who is a good reference for them, who can get them what they need directly or indirectly. And you
Yeah,
start it that way.
yeah, I think it's so important to actually show people that you have a genuine interest in
Yes.
in them and in their company and in the problems that they have in their company, and that you're genuinely interested in solving those problems, whether you solve them personally or you know who
Mm-hmm.
man can. This is also a good way forward. Yeah.
Yes, and saying that, I'm careful to say I'm not always the best answer for you every time, but I will try to find the best answer for you
Yeah.
and try to help you. And sometimes that means that when someone sends me an inquiry, I say, I can't help you with that one, but so and so in Dubai or so and so in London is equipped to help you very well. Here are their contact information. Go for it. So now they see that I did not answer them by saying no, I can't help you. I've answered them by saying yes, I can help you, but not directly. So and so is a person who you need to talk to. Now they know that they will they feel comfortable sending me whatever they can because they know that I've got their back.
Yeah, I think that's so important, to take the time in the beginning to establish that trust and to, um, let's say, to put the focus on the relationship rather than on
Mhm.
the sale. This
Yes.
is very important. But I mean, a lot of very new exporters, or not only new exporters, also more experienced exporters, are very concerned about getting paid. So, um, what what is what methods of payment are you using with your clients? Are you working with payment in advance, or you're working with letters of credit? What's working best for you?
Our biggest currency is trust. Uh, and don't mean that as a cliche. We are a, a concierge export sales business, procuring business. So what that means is we develop close relationships with a small group of customers who I've gotten to know personally. And so long as I can trust them, then I am willing uh, to give them terms. So I give you 30-day terms, even 60-day terms. And if you're late, I want to know why, but that's not a big problem so long as I understand what is happening. And then we have arrangements so that if the sales amount is modest, we do it one way. If it's very large, then we ask for an LC as a standby LC or something of that sort. So it's not a one size fits all answer. And for a new customer, if someone comes to us through a friend, then we say, well, because you are new, we ask that you pay us in advance until we can get used to working with one another. And then as the trust is developing, we give them more and more payment terms. As the sales amount goes up, we then go into LCs. But for small transactions, and by small, I typically mean things under $10,000 or $20,000. So I don't know what small is to everyone, but for us, if it's under $10,000 or $20,000, then we are not looking at an LC. We're looking um, at general payment terms, and we might sometimes ask for give us a partial advance payment,
Yeah.
mainly because these are non-cancelable orders. So if you cancel, we will have a restocking fee. So your advance payment is to cover that. Uh, so it depends on who we're talking to, but those are some of the approaches that we take.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to understand that if you start with, even if you say you want to have a secured method of payment from a new customer, it doesn't mean that you have to stay with that. You can say, okay, I'd like the first 2 or 3 orders to be secured in some way, be that with payment in advance, and then maybe we go to 50% in advance and the rest on 30 days. And if it's a very big order, then we go to an LC. But it doesn't have to be that, okay, for the next 5 years you have to pay in advance. You can change it, and it's just a question of talking to people and agreeing something with them that they can work with.
Yes. The other 2 things I can tell you about payments and LCs is, early on we started with our largest account by having them open with us a standby LC good for 1 year, with partial payments against partial shipments. So if they had opened with us a standby LC of say $1 million, we would draw on it and close, draw and close. So we could have transactions of say $100,000, maybe even $500,000, with payment terms on that, but all of those are secured with that standby LC, and it was fine with us and with them. And then as our sales volume was going up or was shifting, they would adjust the level of the standby LC. And the standby LC, in the sense, would be acting like a banker's guarantee. So that was another option, and there are different ways of doing that. The other thing is, with LCs, if the customer wants to open an LC but wants to make shipment contingent on them using their freight forwarder and them assigning a freight forwarder after we give them all of the shipping details, now I have an LC that is not completely in my control because I don't know who the freight forwarder is. It's not mine. It's not assigned yet. Then I say, if you want to do it that way, that's fine. But now I need standby LC with 30% advance because I want to make sure that you don't cancel it, even though it is an irrevocable confirmed LC, but it's contingent on using an unknown freight forwarder. I don't have control. Now, if you use it, if you're allowing me to use my own freight forwarder, and I can assure you I'll give you a fair rate, then I am
control
more
of the BL, and you can.
So that's the other thing, that when someone opens an LC, you have to have control over it. There are too many times. I mean, it's a common issue that each side wants to control risk and wants to have their own control over things. And when you have trust, you can slowly overcome that issue of who has control, who is taking risk. But you have to be mindful of all those details.
And I think you have to, let's say if I receive an LC from a new client and they send me the proposal, the draft, then the first thing I'm going to do is check through it and see if I can, let's say, if it's okay for me. And if it's not okay, then I just need to go back to them and to discuss with them. It's not
Mhm.
something that's written in stone that it has to stay as it is, because usually you'll get a draft, or you can ask them to make changes if it's something where you say this is not okay for me. I need you to change this, or I can't issue that document in that way, or those time
Yes,
frames are not okay.
exactly, exactly, and that's why in general it's better to be with a standby LC as opposed to a very detailed commercial LC, because sometimes they get into extreme details uh, to the level of we want it to be on a vessel that is no more than 10 years old, and it has to be shipped within 6 weeks. And if it's shipped after 7 weeks, then it doesn't count. I mean, etc., etc. You want to be careful that they not get too carried away with all the details.
A bank wants them to have.
The bank sometimes wants a lot of details, but if they put too many details, that prevents you from accommodating changes, because you don't have control over everything. You don't have control. I mean, the other issue is too often a lot of buyers are concerned about lead times and they want things to ship by a certain date. And yet most manufacturers in the States are careful to say all of our lead times are estimated and are subject to change without notice. And all of our distributors are very clear in saying we are simply sharing whatever lead times we are getting from the manufacturers. We are not guaranteeing anything unless we already have it in our stock.
Yeah.
The buyers are not happy hearing any of that, because they want to have things that are concrete. And I want to be clear with them and saying these are estimates. They are generally accurate. They're subject to change. If we're entering into a crazy year like 2020 with the COVID, nothing is guaranteed in terms uh, of lead times or shipping or anything of that sort. So we're not in the business of guaranteeing things that are out of our control. So one of the things that I'd like to emphasize to anyone is to be very careful not to guarantee things that they cannot guarantee.
Yeah.
That do not promise things
That
just
you
to
can't
make.
keep. Yes.
You might be able to keep most of the time, but if those are things that are not under your control, then say this is our expectation, but we cannot promise. We will do our best, but there is always an element of fluctuation, an element of of uh, of uncertainty, and we have to be understanding about that. We'll tell them we will do our very best for you. Most of the times we will meet that, but it's safer to give you a range.
Yeah. And is it quite usual in the States to also, for example, go for credit insurance options? I mean, in Europe, it's quite frequent that I think most states, there's a state institution who's offering credit insurance, and there are also a number of private credit
Mhm.
insurers who are quite popular. Is that also an option in the US?
It is. It is an option. It is an option that becomes attractive when you're dealing with large established customers on certain large projects. Um, yes, it is an option. You also have to be aware that, as you can imagine, if you want to buy that kind uh, of an insurance coverage, there's a cost with that as well.
Of course. Yeah.
And and sometimes it just, I mean, if you're dealing with unknown customers or customers that are new to you, that's one thing. But what tends to happen is that they tend to cover uh, large established customers who are dealing with with LCs or with other things. And in that case, that's fine as a starting point. Yes, you can do that, and it makes sense sometimes.
Mm.
I don't think it's a good option to do it every time. I think it's an attractive option to open up new opportunities. Um, but one should be careful not to be using that as a mandate on every sale, because that will then handcuff you and and limit you. So it can open doors, but you don't want to use that as your only tool.
No, but it's good for people to know that
Definitely, yes,
the option is there, and that
yes,
you should only think about using it if it really fits to your circumstances in individual
yes,
cases. Yeah.
yes, definitely. And it is an attractive option to basically minimize risk on both sides.
Yeah. And I mean, payments are not the only formality that makes life a little bit more interesting, maybe for exporters. A lot of companies, they find it intimidating, the idea of having to issue certificates of origin or other specific documents required for export. Is there somewhere that you would recommend a company can go to get advice about preparing such documents and what they need for specific markets? Or are there some kinds of training that are available that you would recommend for export?
Yes, yes, there are um, generally three sources. Uh, one would be one would be to establish a good relationship early on with some well-established and trusted international freight forwarders. They generally have those answers, but you want to be clear that you're establishing a relationship with one or two of them, and not trying to work with 10 or 20 and always trying to find who is going to give you a slightly lower cost than the other. You want to develop a working relationship with two or three so that they feel that their time that they're giving to you is going to come back to them. So that will be one source. Another source will be your local World Trade Center in the States, uh, um, and the local Small Business Technology Development Center. There are um, various state institutions, and this varies literally state by state, that offer services to small and medium-sized businesses who want to do export. And the third, which is not surprising, is to come to me. and and I can guide you on that.
Yeah.
Whether I guide you on that on a pro bono basis because I can help you, and just as a quick tip, or whether uh, you want to establish a relationship with me where we can cooperate together. Um, the other thing that I would like to caution people is that they need to understand that there are certain companies, certain customers overseas that may be on the Department of Commerce blacklist that they may not know about. And they need to find out about that before they commit to an order, before they commit
Mm.
to to shipping it out. Um, Having said that, the Department of Commerce in the States um, operates sometimes in an Orwellian fashion where they do not publish a list because they don't want to make it easy for people who are on that list to simply make up a new name and that is not on the list.
Okay.
So sometimes it becomes helpful to again establish a relationship with your freight forwarder who can guide you about that list, and maybe even establish a relationship with someone in the Department of Commerce to show that you are exporting in good faith, and you want to be sure that so-and-so who you met at this international conference is not on any kind of list. If you give them the name, they may say yes or no. Uh, they're more apt to help you that way than they are to give you a comprehensive list, because they will always say, well, whatever list we have is always changing anyway. And just because a name is not on this list does not mean that it is fine. But if you give them a name and say, I want to start with selling to so-and-so, is there any issue on that? They will usually, they can help you with that. They can say yes or no. Uh, as you can imagine, I'm saying this out of a little bit of a painful experience, but that is how we learn. And I would hope that others would learn without having to go through all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think most countries have a similar structure in place, that you can either go to the local chamber of commerce, or you can go, of course, through various private consulting channels, but there's usually some kind of national organization in place who can give you help on such things, and who can check in individual cases about anybody who might be on blacklists, or if any kind of products are also restricted in some way for certain kinds of
Yes,
export.
exactly.
For example,
Exactly.
Iran is always the famous example where you have to be careful, and
Well,
from the States, it's, yeah.
well, from the States, when you're selling to Dubai,
Yeah,
uh, they're nervous sometimes of, well,
it's not going to Dubai, it's landing in Iran afterwards.
yes, and we found that out sometimes by the manufacturer coming to us and telling us, well, we understand that you're sending this to Dubai, but these products we know are spare parts for something that we had installed in the 1970s in Tehran when the Shah was still in power. We know exactly uh, uh, what these items are, so we cannot sell them to you. So sometimes you find it out that way. Sometimes the Department of Commerce at the airport stops a shipment because they find out where it is going, even though you might have all the good intentions, but they may know
Yeah.
something that you don't. So one way to avoid that is, when you're meeting customers, try to find out where all of their offices are, because the issue might not be with the office who you're talking to, but if they have a sister company that you were not aware of that happens to have an office in Tehran, say, then the US Department of Commerce may have a blacklist on all of their offices, and you may not know them.
Yeah.
So it becomes um, due diligence on your part to find out, well, who are my customers? What are they? What are they doing? Where are their offices? Um, are they doing anything uh, that in the States that the U.S. Department of Commerce might not be very happy about?
Yeah. No, that's very true. And it's very easy to fall foul of those kind of, either because of some kind of money laundering or new international contracts and so on. It's more frequent, I think, than people would imagine.
Yes, and I
So,
can tell you from experience on this issue that the U.S. Department of Commerce is going to judge you as an exporter uh, based
on
on
your
your
due
intent,
diligence, yes.
on your due diligence, and on your intent, meaning that
Okay.
if you have been exporting without any issue for 20 years and you had this one thing happen, that's one thing. If your first three attempts at exports were all going into Tehran, that's a different story. Then they would think that, well, you're being more of a smuggler than of an exporter who's not very smart, and then they're looking at you in a different way.
Okay.
So um, and you still might be completely innocent. but you might have the bad luck of having bad timing that your first interactions were when you were just starting. If you had been working well for a long time and then you make one mistake, that's one thing. If you make a bunch of mistakes and you're still brand new,
There's
then
no track record to judge you on. Yeah.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. So having said that, you have to be especially careful at the beginning, and that's probably why uh, certain manufacturers in the States are simply not interested in doing any export, because if their first export gets them in trouble, then they're in trouble for a long time, and they just don't want to deal with that. It's just too much of a liability, of a headache. They just don't know when they're going to get something wrong, and if they're starting out, it's just too much of a risk for a lot of small companies. It's a lot easier for them to simply outsource it to an exporter who has the understanding, has the expertise, has the risk, uh, and that risk now is outsourced to somebody else.
Yeah. And so finding the right partner who's not on any blacklists, but who also can do a good job for your business as your partner is really a key to your success as an exporter. How do you go about finding the right partners for your business? I mean, you're quite established. You have these long-standing relationships
Mm-hmm.
in the Middle East, but if I'm just starting out and I say, okay, I know I speak the language, but maybe I speak the language because I was at school there, but I don't actually have business contacts or something like that. How do you suggest that somebody goes about finding a reliable partner? Where do you start? You know?
I start by getting to know them. I start by prioritizing people over the sale, uh, and it's basically the same as a relationship. You want to prioritize getting to know them and not chasing after what you want. I don't want to give any kind of a crude analogy there, but it's basically it's the same idea applies. You want to try to get to know people as much as you can. If they are your first customer, go ahead and visit with them. You can visit with them over Skype, over Zoom, um, but try to establish an understanding that's beyond simply a telephone call or an email. Uh, Try to widen that circle. Try to establish things on a basis that's bigger than simply trying to sell one thing. Um, but having said that, our business is the opposite of, say, an Amazon business, whereas Amazon tries to sell everything to everyone. We are not focused on selling to millions of people. We're focused on selling to a few dozen contractors and catering to all of their needs. But what that means is now we have the focus and the bandwidth to really focus on who they are. Because I don't need to understand a thousand people. I just need to understand, say, 20. But that's our model. You might have a different model, and then it depends on what your business model is as to what kind of customers you want to attract. Is it a B2B business? Is it a B2C business? Uh, so I don't want to give a one size fits all answer, but if your business is based on getting relationships and all that, then get a relationship. There is no fast way to do that. You want to nurture that. You want to establish that in however way you can.
Yeah, and to be fair and honest, those are the things that make those relationships that you can build, those are the things that make exporting, at least for me, um, very attractive compared
Mm-hmm.
to perhaps other careers that you might be qualified for. Because when you do business in international markets, you meet so many interesting people, and it's fun to meet people who come from
Mm-hmm.
different areas and who have different backgrounds and different experience, but it's not for everybody.
It's not for everyone, and it is for people who are more interested than interesting. And what I mean by that is, if I am more interested in learning about Catherine than I am interested in appearing interesting to Catherine, now I am interested in building a relationship with you, as opposed to simply telling you
Transactional.
about how wonderful I am. Uh, and and once I put exactly trying to go beyond a transactional and trying to get to know you, trying to see, well, I want to get a business partner. I want to have you as my main partner in this country, in country XYZ. Well, I cannot look at that in a transactional basis. I have to look at that in a very holistic way. So there are no shortcuts there. You want to really get to know the person, and you want to let the other person know that you're open to them saying yes and them saying no. And because you want them to feel comfortable with you as you feel comfortable with them, and you're open to all possibilities. So it is an interview process, and you just take it slowly and show your interest in them.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you also accept that a relationship is something that grows over time, it changes over time, and you have to invest your time and energy into building and strengthening that relationship in the same way that you, if you want to have a successful marriage, you have to also invest your time and energy into maintaining that relationship, because otherwise it's also not going to work. The difference being, though, that if you're trying to build a relationship with different people from different cultures and across different time zones, it can be more complicated. How do you, especially, I mean, the States is, let's say, compared with Europe, is a long way away from a lot of the rest of the world. From Europe, it's quite easy because, realistically speaking, only Australia is really, really difficult with time zones if you want to work. But I think from the States, to work with the Middle East, for example, I guess you have 11 or 12 hours time difference, something like that.
Well, from here on the East Coast, it's 7 to 8 hours, depending
Okay.
on the daylight savings times or not. And my accounts are both in the Middle East and in East Asia and Singapore, and some are also in Western Europe. Having said that, I'm glad that international business with the various time zones gets to be awkward and cumbersome and not so easy, because that means that it allows me to be nimble, whereas large companies are not able to.
Yeah.
So then you look at yourself, well, am I a small business? Am I flexible in my timing? Am I willing to go above and beyond? Am I willing to adjust to meet my customers' needs, as opposed to telling them, well, I'm available from 8 to 5 on Eastern Standard Time, and I'll let you figure out when you can meet me during those hours. And if it does not work for you, then too bad. If you're customer centric, then you are customer centric. So I look at that as an opportunity to show how we are different than others. What that means for me is I'm generally available to my customers 7 days a week, because not only am I dealing with a different time zone, but I'm dealing with different holidays. In the Middle East, they're closed Friday and Saturday, versus here it's Saturday and Sunday. At the beginning, it was even harder. They were closed Thursday or Friday.
Yep.
So we only had 3-4 days out of the week. So I have to make myself available to when they're available. And I make myself available to them not only over email, but those customers who I establish a relationship with, not only do I give them my phone number on the office, I give it to them on my mobile number, which is connected onto WhatsApp. So they can reach me almost any time without it having be a formal email going back and forth. They can send me a quick question and I can answer. I am generally available most of the time. I'm mindful that when I go to sleep, I turn off my phone because I
Yeah.
don't want to be available 24 hours a day. But beyond that, I am available. If I have an availability of 16 hours a day out of the 24, I can now connect to anyone around the world. There's no one which is out of reach with that window. If I limit myself to only 8 hours, I will never have a chance to really talk to people in East Asia or in Australia because their time zone and ours doesn't even overlap.
Yep. Yep. But that's also, it comes back to that point of you establish a relationship with those people that goes beyond the purely business. And then
Mhm.
you, let's say, it's a different feeling when somebody contacts you in what is, let's say, your weekend or your free time, who has a more, let's say, you have a closer personal relationship with them.
Mhm.
It's different than if somebody contacts you who you've had 3 emails from in the past and who now is just contacting you because they have your number and they can. It's a different feeling when you have that relationship with them, because it feels more like, oh, he needs this. It's like a friend contacting you.
Yes, and sometimes when they contact me and I answer them back on Sunday, I often don't have an answer for them on Sunday. But I can
Hmm.
simply, even if I simply answer back by saying, "Thank you for your email. I got it. I'm working on it, and should have an answer for you on Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning." And I don't do that in an automated way where if you're contacting a large company, they can send you an out of office message saying that I am out of the office because it's Sunday. I'll get back to you when I'm back in the office on Monday. You know if it is a generic answer or not. So I
Yeah.
personalize that so they know that it is really me answering them. It's not an automated thing. So when I'm really answering them and I'm answering them with specifics on what they're asking me, I say, yes, I will take care of your need about XYZ. Give me two or give me 2 days because everything here is closed. Or sometimes to really help them, I can look up that information and tell them what you're asking me for is an invalid part number. Here is a link. I need more information and get back to me on Monday when I can completely answer you. But now I've saved them a day because they can
Yeah.
see that I've already done something for them.
Yeah.
And what that means is they have a choice of working with me or working with another exporter in the States who will not tell them anything until they're back in the office.
Yeah.
If I keep that up as a habit, after a while, they will contact me only, or they'll contact me first, and they can count on me being there for them. And that has value beyond just uh, offering them something at a lower price. I'm offering them speed, I'm offering them convenience, I'm offering them basically uh, full access and a one-stop shop.
Yeah. I mean, that is such an important thing to offer those kind of value. It's not only a price question, but I mean, 2020, I think, has been an especially different, an especially difficult year for exporters. I don't know about you, but I for sure was used to visiting partners in their home countries, to visit them in their office. How have you had to adapt your business to deal with the surprises of 2020 that the year has brought you?
Exactly as we are doing right now. We're
Yeah.
having much more communication over Zoom or over Skype. We're having, um, I mean, there's nothing quite as good as being somewhere physically in the same room. Uh, but the next best thing is being somewhere virtually in the same room, so they can see me, they can see my face, my
Yes.
my body language. Uh, they can see that I am understanding them. The thing below that then becomes a telephone call or WhatsApp uh, on down, and the lowest level becomes a simple email, because an email is open to misinterpretation. Even though the communication is supposed to be explicit, when you're doing with international trade, there's what you think is easily understood among your colleagues in your country may have a slightly different meaning, a different nuance when you're talking to someone somewhere else, which could be clarified if you're with them over the phone or over Zoom, where they can see you, they can hear you. Um, it is so much better. I mean, I've learned that when I was doing too much on email, some of my communications ended up after a while being a little bit dry and cold, and I had to be careful about that and break the ice and pick up the phone and call them. And sometimes I can call them on their cell phone after hours, or somehow connect to them personally and say, I want to get past this back and forth on the email, because I
It
we're
doesn't
getting
solve the
lost in
problem.
the details. We're getting lost in the details. To overcome that, we need to pick up the phone and just talk.
Yeah.
Or can we set up a time where we can do something on Zoom? And I'll be mindful of their time zone as well, and I will make it to be convenient for them. So these are basic things. They may appear common sense. They're often not. I mean, they're often not as
As common as you
as
might think.
common or as intuitive, but they're easily understood. You just want to be mindful of your customer. What is your customer needing? What is your customer wanting? What is your customer thinking? And knowing full well that you're not understanding your customer correctly every time anyway. So given that mistakes are going to happen, that misinterpretations are going to happen, how are you accommodating that? What actions are you taking to get past that? So one thing you can do is try to expand yourself from simple written communication to get into more of Zoom communication, more of on the phone, hearing their voice, seeing their faces. It makes a difference, and it shows that you care.
Yeah, and I would underline that, especially if one of you is talking in a language that isn't the first language, or if both of you are talking in a language that isn't the first language. Like, for example, if I'm dealing with customers in China and we're talking in English, then it's very important, this face-to-face communication, because often you get even more chance of misunderstandings on written communication purely because the things that you transport with your non-verbal communication, they just get completely lost.
Correct. And if you're making a joke over email, chances that it get misunderstood are very high, because you may think that it's obvious, but if you're going outside of your cultural block, in the States, even if you go from one region to another, you might get yourself in trouble. If you're going from the States to another country, you're foolish to think that your jokes are going to be understood everywhere all the time. They will invariably not be. But if they can see your face, then you can tell if your joke is landing in the wrong way, and they can tell that you're meaning something differently. And that's why it really helps to break the ice, and every once in a while get into a conversation that's not strictly business, and that's not only over email. It's really important to once in a while make things personal.
Yeah. So if I can just sum up, because I think we're coming to the end a little bit, would that be your top tip for people who are getting started into international business, to really take the time to build the relationship, to invest in the relationship, and to put the people first?
Yes, yeah, it's always the case. You have to put the people first. You have to understand. You have to understand who your customers are and what value you are bringing to them. Um, if your value is you're offering them a concierge level service because you are small and nimble, that's fine. If your value is that you have a niche product and you have a deep technical understanding of your customers' needs, that's also fine. You just have to find how you are adding value and how you are communicating that effectively, uh, without the focus on your features, on what makes you special, but the focus on how you can make life easier for your customer. It's always about your customer.
Yeah.
And having them feel that you are understanding them. It's not only important that you understand them, but that you make clear to them that you wish to understand them and that you do understand them and you want them to have that warm feeling and want them to feel that they can contact you at any point if there is a a a misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Have them feel comfortable about that.
Did we miss out on any questions today that you feel are essential for people listening to know about? Did I forget something?
Try to be personable. Try to get to know them. Uh, Depending on the culture, it might affect what kinds of personal questions you can ask. Uh, but basically try to learn more about them to see, well, how else can you be of service to them beyond your product or your service. um, I don't sell I don't sell college services, but if my customer has a family member who's interested in going to college and I could be of service to them in some way, I will make it clear to them that I'll be happy to help you in that way as well. um, and obviously I'm not going to to uh, to charge them for that service because that's not part of my business. So I want to be giving them value, not always trying to sell them something, but always trying to give them value, always trying to be mindful of how can it be of service to you as a customer, what else can I do for you, uh, how can I make you feel better taken care of and make myself be more available to you and you feel that I am available to you. Um, and encourage you to come back to me and ask me, well, what else I can do for you? And encourage you to tell me of your colleagues and your friends and even some of your competitors who I could be of service to.
Yeah. Thank you, Wael. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you this
No,
evening.
thank you.
Where can people go to find out more about you and what you do? Or maybe
Thank
people
you.
would like to have some support from you on their export as well. So maybe you can just give us the data of where they can contact you.
The easiest way is to go to my website, which is teknitrade-ltd.com. That's TEKNI trade, that's TRADE hyphen LTD, short for limited.com. You can also do teknitrade.biz, .biz, either one works. My email is WAEL, that's my first name, at teknitrade-ltd.com. So you can reach me either way, and I'll be happy to be of service to you and to support you and your friends in any way that really makes sense.
Thank you, Wael. It's been really great today.
Oh, thank you, Catherine.